Actually heartwarming customer interaction by Agent 2319. We got a call from an older lady today. She was clearly distraught but didn't say why right away. She front-loaded a ton of info, where she was sitting, what time she was there, etc. Finally she explained that her husband of 60+ years had passed away a couple weeks ago. This would be her first Christmas without him, and she had lost her wedding ring at the theater that day. We took down her info, as we always do with Lost and Found. Normally we just put the paper in the e-office and if something turns up give them a call. But for this old lady, we tore the building apart. We got every trash can from the bathrooms, lobby, theater, etc. and dug through them. Pulled seats out. The whole deal. And, sure enough, we found the ring in one of the trash cans. She came and got it that afternoon and thanked us profusely. Some of my co-workers threw a fuss about having to dig through the trash and stuff, but I don't care about their complaints one bit. We did the right thing, and I'm so glad that we were able to help her. It makes me so sad to think about what a rough holiday season she's already going to have.
Patron didn't listen, gets arrested, and blames me for it all. By fucking hell people. So, I'm just floor staff at a large chain theater corporation, and since I work all 3 positions at our location, I have to know all of our policies to enforce. No smoking in the theater, no weapons, no outside food or drink, ect. I was working box office this past Avengers weekend, and this particular patron strongly believed that since we were so busy, he didn't have to listen to a single policy. I was working in box 3, where there is no phone or walkie or anything since we rarely ever have to put someone in there. Which was all fine and dandy, until he showed up. This patron was a larger guy. Much taller and far more built than me. Which made me relieved that there is glass between myself and the customers. This is how our conversation went. AP equals angry Parton. AP, can I have a ticket for Avengers at 125? Me, sure. Give me 1 second. When I went to ring up a single ticket, I spotted something hanging off of his hip. It was a handgun in a clasp holster and what I assume was an extra clip. Me, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave your, I pointed to the gun, not wanting to say the word gun into the microphone and have other customers freak out behind him. Me, in the car. It's against our policy. AC, I have my license. I'm allowed in with it. Me, no sir. This is private property technically. You'll have to leave it outside in your vehicle. Now conceal and carry licenses are rather popular in my area, and people with them are almost always responsible and respectful when it comes to our policy, which is something I highly appreciate. Especially now. AC, getting angry that goes against my Second Amendment rights. Me, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but it's our policy. I cannot sell you a ticket or let you into the building with that. AC, well, the cops inside have guns. Why the fuck can't I bring mine? At this point AC was fuming. His face was red, and I honestly was scared for anyone within scene distance of him. Me, the police officers are here to ensure safe and orderly conduct with our large crowds. Not only that, but they are on duty. AC, well, I bring mine for safety. I'm not fucking stupid. Me, like I said sir, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I cannot let you into our building with that. AC, you know what? Fuck you. It's my fucking right. Beside box 3, we have 2 kiosks. AC walks over and purchased a ticket. I watch him through the reflection of the glass from across the front lobby, and I immediately call one of the officers we have on duty with my cell phone. I explain that us walking in, and the officer tells me he'd handle it. I ignore the situation, as I have a long line of customers, and I try my best to work through it. About 20 minutes later, I see the officer with AC in tow, handcuffed. My eyes widen a bit and he starts screaming at me as the officer does his best to pull him out the doors to the station. AC, I'm suing, insert name of company here, this is bullshit. This is against my rights. That CNT doesn't deserve to fucking live. Maybe an hour or so passes and the officer comes back and I let him sit in box with me as the crowd has died down dramatically. The officer explained to me that he didn't have a license to conceal and carry at all, and that he was also a suspect to a large coke dealing operation, which he was running out of his car. Regardless of how you feel about guns or if you have a conceal and carry, just don't fucking bring them to a movie theater, and don't argue with staff about it. We get paid minimum wage. We deadass don't get paid enough to deal with this.
Crown employees. Don't feel degraded enough? The new initiative coming down the pipeline will make it all right /s by throwaway 123431514. Theaters that are not embedded in malls with a flat trash removal fee will now require their employees to dig through the trash, find cups that have liquid in them, and empty them into a barrel that gets dumped into a drain in the janitor closet. The idea is that it cuts trash removal expense due to the weight difference. I'm not kidding. Whoever the fuck it was in the Seattle region that was tasked with running this experiment, and decided to come back to the company with "yeah, it does make a difference in cost as opposed to this is ridiculous, I'm going to tell corporate it didn't make a difference" literally sucks. At my location, we're exempt, but if we weren't, I would never force my staff to dig through trash to empty out garbage cups. Are you fucking kidding me? They're making minimum wage. Pro tip for those of you that are going to be subjected to this bullshit: people spit into cups. Hell, sometimes people literally ask for cups just to spit their dip into. Where I'm at, anytime we're handling bodily fluid, there's a kit we have to wear before we can touch anything. Cineworld seems to have picked up a habit of towing the line of what's okay and isn't regarding US work standards. Come in off the clock to do Stars of Hope stuff. It's not required but would be great. Now empty disgusting drink cups into a barrel with no sort of mask or protection, then dump it down the sink. Nice, Crown.
Aladdin Opening Night by dynamiteuphersleeve. Aladdin Opening Night has happened. I arrived at my theater at 4 p.m. to close. And a live camel arrived. Corporate arranged for a live camel to be in my lobby for the premiere. God help me.
First Endgame weekend down. By Coahuilaceratops. This weekend was hell, but I honestly feel so much closer to my team now. They busted ass despite some of the setbacks we experienced. Over the course of the weekend, we ran out of supplies left and right, and just barely scraped by with the essentials. All theaters within a 100-mile radius of our location, including ours, had to share stock. Some straight up couldn't give anything because they just didn't have it. By Sunday we even had to desperately hit up grocery stores to change out bills for $1s and $5s because we simply ran out and the banks were closed. Both of our large-sized ice machines went down, and by Saturday evening, we had to resort to buying ice from gas stations. One of our largest screen speakers were also blown on one side, but there was surprisingly only a handful of angry customers to deal with from that. Being a manager and having many premieres under my belt, I knew what to expect, but we have honestly not experienced a rush like that in many years. I did my best earlier in the week to completely overstock our concession stand to soften the blow, which did help tremendously. But my floor staff really handled everything like champs, and they deserve all the credit. They really worked together like a perfect unit and did what needed to be done to see us through. From crowd control, to ushering, to cutting through the concession lines, they completely killed it. Here's to surviving this weekend, and the next to come.
Don't bring your 6-year-old child to R-rated horror movies by Calico96. So my brother and I saw Brightburn this weekend. It's a competent film with an intriguing premise. Essentially it's a film that shows what would happen if Superman was evil, just without any references to DC lore/canon because licensing. Given the subject matter, the film is extremely graphic and violent, and these moments often happen out of the blue just after a more mellow moment, perhaps to have a greater impact. It's made even more disturbing that the Superman stand-in is only 12-13 in the film, and most of the violence is towards his adopted family. Anyway, there was a man farther down our aisle who had brought his 2 little kids to see the movie. The theater I was at, which I happen to work for as well, has an R-rated policy when it comes to kids, but it is only that no kids under 6 are allowed at showtimes after 6. If the movie starts before 6 o'clock, it is technically still okay. I personally think it should be no kids under 6 at any time, but I digress. So the movie clues you in pretty early that it's going to be a dark movie, and you would hope that if parents brought young kids, they would take the hint and leave before the movie got to the nightmare fuel. Not this guy. They sat through the entire movie, through a scene showing a man graphically get his jaw ripped off and die, a woman pull glass shards out of her eyeball, a kid stalk and terrorize a young girl. You get the idea. The kid also wears a really creepy mask during his acts of violence. In the final act of the film though, the kid, spoilers, goes full supervillain and murders his father by lasering a hole in his head. This is when one kid finally asks, "Can we go home?" Dad ignores his kid. They kept asking to go and saying they were scared through the rest of the film, which made it really hard for me to enjoy the rest of it. I felt really bad for that kid. TL, Doctor, shitty dad bring little kids to see horror movie, won't leave when kids get scared and ask to leave.
Avengers Endgame was a year ago by class of 2017. This time last year we were dealing with the intensity of Avengers Endgame. Now we ain't even open. Crazy.
Holding out hope. By imsoooverit. That my theater closes for a bit. We don't have the attendance to justify being open. I'm hoping the governor of my state says to shut down all non-essential businesses. I just don't trust customers around myself. My crew members. You can clean all you want but it doesn't help for a disease that's airborne. Has anyone's theaters closed? I heard some in Pennsylvania have.
Caught a Perv in Joker by Road to Rocky 43. I will start with this. A few months ago I posted here saying that there was a guy masturbating in Midsummer on a Sunday morning. Well, he got away that day because when we went to get him he already slipped out. Well, he came back today. He went into Joker and my friend recognized him. Other people were in a theater this time so he wasn't alone but he still sat in the back. We thought, keep an eye out but I don't think anything will happen. We were on. My friend went to check from the projection room and during a very violent scene in our third apartment, my friend saw the old pervert with his sweatpants and his knees stroking away. He went to get me to prove it. He ran to catch him. I looked down and the guy was pulling up his sweatpants. My friend and I led him out of the theater and he rushed. Disgusting perv, and I drew a sketch of him and he's already been recognized so that's pretty good. We would have called the police but we needed to get him out of here. Gross thing is this, it's not just that he was doing it in public, it was that he was doing it during the violent cliff scene in Midsummer and during a violent scene in our third apartment. Really tells you what kind of freak we were dealing with.
You need to get a new job. You put us through hell and ruined our evening. By Plumowski78. Because an elderly couple mistaked Ready or Not for Art of Racing in the Rain and asked for tickets for that instead. Hey film studios, please start giving your movies less confusing names so theater employees aren't berated by seemingly illiterate elders. Side note, if you forgot your rewards card at home, it's no one else's fault but yours, and if your phone number is linked, saying it really fast and then talking down to us when you have to repeat yourself is not going to help. In fact, it just makes us want to help you even less. How about you actually start listening to us and just get the damn app, then you wouldn't ever have to run into this problem that you constantly blame us for.
I hate Marvel weekends. By KaijuHunterBrax. As a theater employee as well as a cleaning crew employee, this weekend is the worst. I work as a tech for a small chain theater in Texas, and I also do overnight cleaning over at a Cinemark a town over. So far since Thursday it's been a nightmare. The Cinemark just got new recliners in a remodel, so everything has to be spotless. It took 6 hours to clean those theaters. At my normal tech job things constantly go down, and fixing them with a crowd of people surrounding you is a pain in the ass. I've been dreading Captain Marvel for months now. And I'm ultra dreading Avengers Endgame weekend the most. I am drained. And I haven't even gotten to see the damn movie. So for all my fellow theater peeps, fuck Marvel weekend.
Don't flirt. Don't be rude to kids. By PunnyHoomans. So, this was kinda funny. I am a Pokemon fan, as are most of my siblings. So when Detective Pikachu was first released in the theater, I was super excited to go see it. My mom, knowing that she had to go to work that day, asked if I would be able to take my little brother and sister with me. That was fine. Of course, if there is anything to note, it is that I am 13 years older than the oldest of these two. So, naturally, it'll look like another story for anyone watching me. I worked at this theater at the time who knew the story. But I digress. I had gotten them ready, got them in the car. Went next door to buy snacks. And time to see Pikachu. So we enjoyed the movies and they were babbling about how cute they were and how they loved it. It really was a good movie. I was happy to share it. Now, before we left, I made them both use the bathroom. And then this guy shows up. I wasn't the greatest fan of this guy from the start. Has been trying to hit on me and always smells like a muck trainer that doesn't bathe. He asked me what I saw, and to keep polite in my place of work I said Detective Pikachu. He just chuckled and said, yeah. It was a pretty good movie. Ticks me off all these little kids are going to see it. Don't they know this is our movie? What a jerk. I looked at him and flatly said, honestly, I think the film is great for everyone. And I'm glad that anyone of any age can get into Pokemon. It's the perfect time for them to get into it. As I was saying that, my brother and sister both came out and latched themselves to my waist in a hug. The guy suddenly looks horrified as he scurried away. The muck trainer never flirted with me again. It was beautiful.
Won't sell minor a ticket to R-rated movie, mom says it's because racism by Calico96. I've worked at a movie theater for over 3 years now. The theater I work at is consistently one of the top 5 locations for the company. I work primarily in the box office, which means I sell the tickets, answer the phones, etc. The city I am in has a good amount of rich entitled snobs and poor welfare snobs, so we get a good amount of both from time to time, but this one specific instance really sticks out to me. It was the weekend The Conjuring 2 came out. Horror movies tend to be very popular among teenagers and young adults, and being the genre that it is, a lot of horror movies tend to be rated R. Our company has a very strict policy with R-rated films, and we are not allowed to sell tickets to children under 17 unless they are attending with their parents. Older friends, siblings, or so's are a no-go. Employees can get in some serious trouble for going against this policy, so we tend to be very strict. Anyway, a group of about 6 kids, all obviously under 17, walk up to my register and try to buy tickets to The Conjuring 2. I politely but sternly explained our policy for R-rated movies and suggest they buy tickets for something they can see. They reluctantly do and go inside. Being that this was not my first rodeo, I radioed ahead to the ushers to keep an eye on the group and make sure they didn't sneak into The Conjuring. Of course, they did. As was standard operating procedures, the kids were told they could see the film their tickets were for or get them refunded and leave. Might sound a bit harsh, but that's what you get for breaking the rules. One of these kids, who happened to be black, called their parents and whined to them about getting kicked out. The mother pulled up to the theater in just a few minutes and marched over to the box office where I was. The box office is exterior and looks out on the sidewalk, so it was a short walk from her car. The mother then explodes at me how I am being racist for not selling her child a ticket and screams about how her child deserves to see this movie and doesn't need a parent to accompany them because they watch that kind of shit at home, so it's okay. Unperturbed, I double down and explain our rating policy to her and tell her that what child watches at home is none of our business, but our theater has rules and policies in place for multiple reasons that I don't have time to list here. This lady was not having it, and so she demanded to speak to a manager. I call one up, knowing they will tell her the same thing I did. Sure enough, the manager does, and the lady carries on with the narrative that we don't sell tickets to black kids because our company is racist and not because they are underage. She threatens to call the police. We have police on site that provide security, and they are familiar with this kind of stuff as well, and she also says she will take this to the news and make this a national social rights issue. The angry mother then storms back to her car with the child and drives off. Needless to say, no news crews or cops ever showed up. I've got plenty other stories about the kinds of shenanigans I have had to deal with from customers, so let me know if you want to see more.
Rant over crown management by deleted. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I've been a manager for Crown for 2.5 years. There was a recent post about managers getting a survey, and to be honest, as I was writing, this rant came to be. I took that survey. Unfortunately, it is only multiple choice, asking things like would you recommend people to work here? Etc. There is no chance to bring up specifics. For context, I'm a complexity 4 theater, which means we have 3 managers and 3 team leads, but we consistently have an attendance that demands more managers than that. We are constantly understaffed, and because of this, just last night, my team lead and I both had mental breakdowns because of the lack of staff, overpopulated theater, and severely rude guests. It isn't healthy. Because we are so behind on our workload, we have to put more on our employees to help out. This causes our employees to want to leave, understandably, making the problem worse as our veteran staff continues to leave. Some staff have stuck it out, for which I am more grateful than words can describe, but after making them work a crazy busy December, they now spring this liquid policy, which is BS. My theater has a compactor that already drains liquids, but we too are included in this policy? So after being overworked, forcing floor staff to be overworked to the point of leaving, causing us to be further understaffed, we now have to drain cups of soda, tobacco spit, water, and who knows what else. So they can save a couple dollars on trash fees? No. My point is this. Whatever your position in the theater, never feel like you owe Crown something. You owe this theater chain nothing. All of the changes over the past year only shows me that they are so out of touch with how the theaters operate and don't care about the pressures and workload they put on us. If you have read this far, thank you for reading. This has been building up for so long now, and I'm getting sick of it. Only thing keeping me at the theater are my coworkers and the floor staff that continue to keep our business open. To all you workers, thank you for your continued efforts, but we don't deserve this.
Completely trashed theater. Why? By Rospagnoli. Sorry for the long post in advance. I've been working for a theater for about 2 years now, and I've never witnessed a house completely destroyed quite like I did yesterday. Some backstory: we were getting ready to close for the night. Last movie was a 10:30 Toy Story showing when 4 college-age boys come in at about 10:45, just 5 minutes before we locked doors. They came in very arrogant, cracking demeaning jokes to me that I just have gotten good at ignoring over the past few years. They're being very loud and rowdy, and when I ask them what movie they want, they say something like it doesn't matter, just pick anything for us. After a while of me getting them to choose a movie, they pick the 10:30 Toy Story and start mocking mentally challenged kids excited to see a movie, jumping up and down and making noises and just overall being the shit stains on society that they are. I'm very annoyed, so I'm just being short and ignoring them at this point. They order 3 large popcorns and 1 medium for the 4 of them, way too much, but it was late and I was tired, so I didn't think much of it, and go into their movie. They're the only ones who bought for this movie. Not even 15 minutes later they come back and all 3 larges get free refills. Seemed very weird to me, and I knew something was up, but I can't really deny them popcorn if we have it. So I continue doing my closing duties, and when I have all my staff sent home and am done, I go upstairs to shut off the projection booth, maybe like 30 to 45 minutes before Toy Story would be over. I turn everything off except that showing. I look in just out of curiosity and nobody is in there, so I figured these dickheads must have got bored and left, so I shut everything off and went back downstairs to finish up and leave. I come downstairs to my nightly janitor waiting to talk to me, and he says you have to come look at Theater 7, just for a minute. I go with him, and oh my fucking god, there is popcorn fucking everywhere. Up and down every aisle, dumped behind every seat, all the armrests down, and every cup holder filled up with popcorn behind our screen, trails of it to all the exit doors. The whole 9 yards. I couldn't take one step in that theater without standing on a mountain of popcorn. They even took the liberty to rip up their bags and buckets and toss them all over like confetti. I was furious. I didn't have to clean it luckily, as it was the last showing, but I felt so horrible for my cleaner and was disgusted somebody felt so entitled to do that just to make customer service workers' lives miserable. I wish I would've taken pictures, it was just indescribable. I work for a very small theater in a very small town owned by a large chain, Complexity 5B. Other Crown employees will understand how minuscule that is, So to see people go out of their way to be that big of an asshole is not so common at my workplace. I was just fucking appalled. What in God's name would ever compel somebody to do something like that? Also, what's your story of a customer or customers doing something so despicable that you actually hate them? Did you get the opportunity to confront a customer doing something like this? I would love to hear similar stories.
Dad wants refund for tickets because a PG-13 movie mentioned porn in front of his 12-year-old by KipsyCakes. So I've watched tons of videos about Reddit stories, which eventually made me want to come here. I didn't know where this story could go, but I thought maybe here would be fine. If anyone has any suggestions on other Reddit boards that stories like this can go to, I'd love to hear some. This was the first time I ever dealt with a terrifying customer. A few years ago, I had a job at a movie theater working at the concessions booth in the theater's lobby. I sold tickets, food, and drinks to people and sent them off to see their movie. It was pretty simple at times, and I often worked alongside 2 to 3 other people who were about my age or older. There are actually periods during my shift when the lobby is completely empty because the next movies don't start for around an hour to 2 hours, so I can usually talk to people freely without worrying about others waiting in line. During one of these periods, a father and his son came into the theater to buy tickets for a later showing of Spider-Man Homecoming. I got his tickets for him and we started talking. I don't remember how the conversation got to this point, but he started complaining about adult jokes in movies meant for kids. I should have seen this as a warning for later events, but I didn't. I argued about some adult jokes being okay if done gently or subtly. It wasn't really important to this story, but it kind of gives an idea of where I stand in terms of what I see as inappropriate in a movie meant for children. While I was talking, I noticed his son next to him. His son was pretty quiet, but I noticed he looked a bit like he didn't want to be there. After a few minutes of talking, the father and his son left. A few hours later, the next movie's crowd came into the lobby and I did my usual thing of selling tickets and food before everyone was gone. About an hour passed and the lobby was empty again. It was kind of late in the day, so I was doing my normal evening shift stuff when all of the sudden the father and his son came into the lobby. I noticed they came from the theater, so they probably went to see the Spider-Man movie. The father comes up to me and the son disappears into the arcade nearby. I asked the father how I could help him, which he replied with, "I want a refund for my tickets." I never had to deal with refunds before, so this shocked me a bit. I called the manager and told him the situation, and while I waited for him to come, I asked the father why he wanted a refund. This is where it got kind of bad. He said that the movie mentioned porn and other bad words. I was surprised because I knew Spider-Man Homecoming was PG-13 and a PG-13 movie can't really show porn. I asked, did the movie actually show porn? He said no, it just said the word. I was trying to act polite, but in my mind something was up. By that time the manager was here and the father repeated the situation to the manager. I don't remember what happened, but that manager left and never came back for 10 minutes. When the father asked where he went, clearly getting ticked off, I called the manager again, who then said wait, that was serious. He came back and then things escalated quickly. The father freaking yelled at the manager, ordering he get a refund for the movie because it said bad stuff in front of his kid. 1. The kid was 12 to 13 years old and this movie is PG-13. The father should have done research on this beforehand. 2. The movie they went to see was almost over. Getting a refund for a movie you watched the majority of is literally stupid. The worst thing was that this man was saying the F word nearly every sentence to my manager, who suddenly turned angry as well. Talk about hypocritical, my gosh. My manager said, if you want a refund because a movie said a bunch of bad words to your son, then why are you cussing so much when your son is literally 10 feet away? The arcade in our lobby doesn't have a door and isn't far from the concession stand, so that boy probably heard everything. The father got furious, constantly demanding his refund. I'll tell you the truth, most of my memory of this whole scene is blurred because I panicked the entire time. I hate being stuck in the middle of vicious arguments and my anxiety freezes me in place, so all I could do was stand in silence watching this. By the time I came out of my anxiety attack of how this all started, I noticed my manager was trying to take a calmer approach and settle the father down. He reached out his hand and said, "My name is manager /." The father stared straight at it, disgusted, and said, "I'm not going to shake your effing hand." The manager sternly then said, "Then I'll have to ask you to leave." The father got even more ticked off, refusing to leave until he got his refund. The manager consistently said why he couldn't because it would make no sense to give a refund to a movie that you should have known may contain inappropriate material for your child and that you already watched the majority of it. The argument went back and forth until my manager threatened to call the police. At first, the dad thought he was bluffing. My manager looked to my right to the back room where all of our cleaning supplies were. One of my co-workers was hiding there, peeping through the door to watch the argument. He said call the police, but my co-worker just silently closed the door, leaving the manager to do it himself. He grabbed the phone and at that point, the father no longer saw the threat as a bluff and said, "Okay, fine, I'm leaving." As he left, he pulled his son out of the theater. I think as he was leaving he said something like, "I'll never come back to this place again," or something, but again, I was just too terrified to process all of this crap happening. The father and his son were gone and laughter erupted from the back room from my co-worker. He was mocking the father, especially the "I'm not going to shake your effing hand" part. For nearly 5 minutes, I was standing completely stiff as a board, praying that he wouldn't come back and kill us all out of spite. He never did. Thank goodness. I thought about the son and how he must have felt. Seeing him before, he seemed like he wouldn't support that behavior at all and I felt embarrassed for him. I think the manager calmed me down a bit, but I don't remember much after that. He mumbled something and left. I didn't notice him leaving because I was looking for any excuse to forget that it all happened. I ended my shift a few hours later, went home, and spilled the entire thing to my parents and my sister. Funny thing is that a few days later, my dad was talking to a random lady at some event. She was talking about how she was in the bathroom at the movie theater and heard all of this yelling happening in the lobby. When she left the bathroom, she saw the manager and the father arguing and a young woman standing on the other side of the cash register with the look of pure terror. When my dad said that was me, she explained how sorry she was for me and how brave I was for being able to survive that. Honestly, I was just laughing that I had witnesses to the whole moment. Hopefully, since I'm going into a career that doesn't deal with many people, I won't have to worry about something like that happening ever again. And now, I can think about Spider-Man Homecoming without thinking of that freaking father. Thanks, dude. Ever deal with a crazy customer at a movie theater before? I'd like to hear it. Also, after giving it a ton of thought, I realized that this story would actually qualify as a /entitled parents story, so I retold the story over there.
Worst shift of my life by Mr. Paradox. I work at a very popular movie chain, like a huge gigantic chain. The one where corporate doesn't care about its workers. I already knew it was gonna be bad day by the fact we pre-sold 4,500 tickets for opening night, Thursday, and 3,500 for today. Apart from the occasional crying from the high school concession workers pulling 8-hour shifts while only standing, and the loud screams of our old weather and broken poppers, the shift started out not as bad as I thought. Until the first showing of Avengers. All hell broke loose. The main popper went down, burning the popcorn, the concessions leader running to take it out while pulling the most rookie move she could have pulled. Dumping the hot steaming and burned popcorn straight into the trash, melting the bag and causing the entire snack bar to fill with light smoke that smelt like a mixture of plastic and death. All while I watched in horror making my pizzas. They had high school kids, I'm only 1 year older, but minors in high school taking the blunt force of the customers. It was horrible. I sold over 9 stacks of pepperoni, 10 pizzas in a stack, within the first hour. Eventually running out within 2 hours. And then my manager's bitching at me that the last guy didn't prep enough dough. On top of this I had hungry fucking neckbearded asshole customers that had to be at least 25 years old and that smelt like actual cat piss coming up to me, yelling at me through the counter and asking for when more pizzas would be out. I shit you not, these guys had fucking anime sweatshirts, Naruto, some fucking lolly shit, and just all around cringe beards. I ended the shift dizzy and tired. I worked for a total of 10 hours. It was the worst shift of my life.
So that happened by pajamasantos. Before I start, I just want to warn y'all that this is going to be a gross one. So like any other Friday night, the theater was empty. I thought yesterday would be a chill day, but boy was I wrong. As I am waiting for people to clear out in one of our screen rooms, a homeless man came up to me saying have a good night but in mockingly way. I brushed it off, replying back to him in a respectful manner. When it came time for us to go in, our nose was met with a very unpleasant smell. We went to go investigate what the smell was, and it turned out to be literal shit. Shit was everywhere. The walls, the chairs, the floor. The whole entire floor was marked in his shit. It honestly looked like he smeared his shit with his hands on a row he wasn't even sitting in. Besides that, he left us $1, which no one took for good reasons.
I quit last year, but they needed to tick me off one last time by PunnyHoomans. I was reminded the other day on why I quit. It was getting later into the year. So, as any law-abiding citizen, I wanted to file my taxes. However, during this I needed a copy of my W-2 from the theater I quit last year. I sent them an email. Nothing. I gave it time. But they never got back to me. So instead, I decided that I would just suck it up and call them. I held a hope to avoid this due to the crummy old management. But whatever. I called the regional chain. Well, this was basically how the call went. Thank you for calling Cheapskate Theaters. This is Dodo. How can I help you? Please note I know that Dodo is a manager. Hello. My name is Punny. I'm calling because I need a copy of my W-2 and was hoping that you could send me a fax or email or some way to access it. Oh. We mailed those out a while ago. Did your address change? It doesn't. Is the GM on property? She is, but she's busy right now. Well, can you please send me an email form or some link, then? We don't do anything here. We sent out the forms. You'll have to email corporate. Okay, I actually have emailed them. Is there a phone number you can give me to contact them? Corporate doesn't have phone numbers. What? I'm getting angry. Yes, there is. You need to give me the number so I can contact them so I can get my form. Well, I can't give you anything. Okay. So you are aware that you legally have I give me this form, correct? Yes, I am aware of that. But you'll have to contact. Bye. I hung up on him. Fuming mad. This chain is so unprofessional that there wasn't any numbers on the website. Email contacts just go to the theater level, it seems. My mom had been listening in on the commotion and located another number. Another theater from another state. I called and told them my situation, and she personally emailed corporate to let them know my issues. I had the form within 5 minutes. I called that GM from the theater I didn't work at to say thank you. I felt bad, but I was, and am, incredibly frustrated. Are they aware that I could've just called the IRS and reported them? This GM was such a horror to work for. She retaliated against her employees, had obvious favoritism. Things like that. I will never work at another movie theater again.
Quit trying to cheat the refill policy. By Yearface44. So I work at a regional chain in Michigan. We have a 1 free refill policy on our popcorn. If the guest wants more, then they have to pay for another bag. Whenever we give someone their refill, we hole punch the bag. Pretty standard system. I've never really had anyone try anything funny. Until yesterday. A guest walks up to the concession stand and hands me her bag. Guest, can I get a refill? Me, sure. Goes to hole punch it. Gee, oh, don't worry about hole punching it. Unfortunately, it's our policy to hole punch bags so we can keep track of refills. The guest just rolls her eyes and says fine. Did she really think telling me not to hole punch her bag would actually work? Nope, try again, bitch.
I can't. by Plumowski78. Vape, male and female popcorn drones alike, we are officially in Satan's hands for now on, and it's time to deal with the worst types of people imaginable on top of an attendance that I'm sure exceeds the capacity of our building. Already had to deal with someone who thought he was slick enough to steal an Avengers promotional display right in front me, which he then acted stupid when I called him out on it. And following after was a mother and her son. The son was ordering multiple buckets of popcorn, hot food, drinks, even several of our Avengers collectible combos, and instead of letting me punch it all onto the register, he asks for a couple things at a time, even agreeing when I ask him if that's all he wants, and then telling me that he wants to order the other things as I'm already rushing to prepare his 5 combos, even having the balls to look me right in the eyes as he taps his watch. His mother then chips in and says, "Settle down, don't you see that they're already overwhelmed?" Which the son replies with, "I'm overwhelmed. I'm gonna miss the movie." He's definitely the type of kid who would get a job at a theater specifically for the perk of free movies and then quit a month later upon discovering that the job actually requires some kind of effort. I'm aware that this is only a mere taste of what will most definitely be in store for this weekend, so I advise for everyone to stay strong and work as a team with your fellow co-workers in order to get through this. And I look forward to reading your own nightmares about this weekend XD I know I'll be posting.
I Lived My Dream, y'all. By AcrobaticOpinion. I have worked at a movie theater since high school. I was planning on quitting in about a month in order to move to another city and begin graduate school. But then something glorious happened. The head of corporate at my company has always been a piece of work. There have been countless instances of her speaking to employees in unbelievably demeaning and inappropriate manners over the years. This week, it was my turn. She called me into her office and decided to insult me personally as well as my capacity to pursue my chosen vocation, told me to take this job off of my resume because I would never get a reference from her, and threatened that she was going to be watching me like a hawk. All because I had been making my thoughts about corporate's micromanaging behaviors known over the last few months, since, you know, this part-time job has no bearing on my future. So I thanked her, walked into the office, typed out a one-sentence resignation letter, and quit on the spot. It was funny, watching this woman behave like a 15-year-old girl and stoop to petty insults. Meanwhile I didn't take the bait, just sat there, laughed, and then walked out. But before I left, I did make sure to inform her that this job had already been removed from my CV, and that I would not be needing a reference from her or this company. Okay, that was a little petty and I shouldn't have bothered, I know. But I couldn't risk her thinking she won something there. Y'all. I don't know if you will ever get this opportunity to stick it to a terrible boss, and I'm not saying you should necessarily take it. Really think it through and consider whether it is in your best long-term interest. But if you decide you really don't need the job or the reference, go for it. I'm still riding this high. After years of instances of watching her belittle employees and feeling powerless, it felt good to give it back, just a little bit.
A nice, quick, positive tale. By LordSparko. This happened about 6 hours ago. We were in the middle of a quiet period, and a guest came in to simply buy some popcorn, to take home, not seeing a film, a pretty regular happening at my theater. After grabbing the popcorn, she looked at the money in her purse, then suddenly came to an interesting decision. If I wanted to just buy a child's ticket for the next kid to come in, is that something I can do? This took me a little by surprise. After 6 years I'd never had anyone ask me anything like this before. I told her of course, and let her purchase a ticket for the next family film on the schedule, Ralph Breaks the Internet. About 20 minutes later I was able to give the ticket to a father and daughter who were pleasantly surprised and shocked at the generosity of a stranger. During the stress and craziness of the holiday season, it's always nice to see stuff like this happen.
Worst marketing promo I've ever witnessed by humblefenris. Just found this sub and boy do I have some stories. I'm a supervisor at a mid-sized theater that got bought out by Crown a while back, and due to a rough transition, our location has seen a lot of shit. This is probably the worst week I've ever had period, much less at work. It was in February of 2018, and I was floor staff back then. The week before Valentine's Day, some guy from corporate came to visit us. Turns out, he was from marketing and was there to set up a special promotion to run through Valentine's and the following weekend. He mentioned it was more of a test to see if it would increase profits if implemented company-wide the following year, so to my knowledge only very few theaters took part in it. Same week, ads went up everywhere for this promotion, Facebook, Twitter, Tinder even. Crown even went so far as to rent a massive billboard on a major highway nearby, and that's how we found out what the promotion was, a free small popcorn with every ticket purchase. Now, we the employees took this as so it's one free small with every box office transaction. That's not so bad. V-Day finally rolls around and we come to a very startling realization, it's one free popcorn per ticket. And for the next 4 days our concession staff went through hell and back. For 4 days straight, we shoveled popcorn. Even with 2 popcorn kettles, we just couldn't keep up. We had to schedule extra staff with the sole purpose of popping and prepping popcorn. 300 plus small popcorns every shift. Upwards of 600 a day, and nearly double that on Saturday. I worked 9 hours straight that day just trying desperately to keep up with the huge influx of popcorn orders, and eventually I just sorta snapped. I'm usually a pretty laid-back guy. I mean sure, I'll get annoyed or pissed at times when inconvenienced, but I'd never been outright furious before. I was banging popcorn scoops everywhere, yelling at the poor guy who was running the orders. He wasn't a great employee anyway, so I don't feel too bad about it. It was miserable. Everyone was hot and sweaty and tired and pissed off. The stand was unbearably hot, with both kettles on full blast, running constantly and overheating. Concessions looked like a war zone by the end of it, crushed popcorn covering the tiled floor, trampled popcorn bags strewn everywhere. Ushers had it bad, too. 50 Shades Freed had just come out and was very popular with the local suburban wine moms, Karen types who like to complain all too often. Every theater was left awash in a sea of little yellow bags, slick and slimy with artificial butter. Our managers, all pretty chill 20-somethings, just looked so defeated by the end of it. Worst part is, the theater didn't even make all that much more money off of it. Of all people and all the popcorn sold in those 4 awful days, maybe 200 or so were actually paid for. None of the customers went for upsells. Drink and candy sales were marginally above average, if anything, according to my manager at the time. The week after was Black Panther opening weekend and it was a fucking cakewalk compared to the V-Day popcorn massacre.
Dealing with an aggressive guest by Zhaife. Ah, so this just happened tonight. Crown chain. The way our loyalty system works is that we're only able to apply 1 discount per item. I was called over to talk to a guest, and by the body language of both my employee and the guest as I was walking up, I already knew she was going to be hostile. I informed her of the system's limitations and possible solutions. The second discount would work if she wanted a second cup, she could use it at any time before it expires in March, or if she really doesn't think she'll use it she could always contact corporate to refund the credits used. She told me she was part of our subscription program, and that I was being a little asshole for not just giving the cup to her for free. She pointed over the counter and told me that she'd call corporate and get all of us in trouble. I said, "Ma'am, there's nothing I can do for you if you're going to speak to me like that," and left. I saw the employee laughing when I came back out, so I asked what was up with the customer, and she told me that I had been called a gay-ass prick the second I walked away. I'm very gay. I shrugged because, honestly, I get it a lot. Shitty customers happen, it gives me something to talk about. So then the projector for her theater breaks down, and an employee overhears her saying that she plans on theater hopping. I stop her and her family, husband and child, and very politely ask to see their tickets. Turned out the husband had separately gone to the box office to get new tickets for the theater they were entering. He was very nice. I hit him with a perfect "Have a great night," and he turned to walk back into the theater. Wife overhears this and storms back out as I'm turning to leave. She calls me an asshole again and rants at me that I'm following her around and harassing her and her autistic son. I told her to wait right there while I grabbed security because, unfortunately, she was going to have to leave. She didn't really like that. I come back with a security guard and another team lead. She comes out and starts crying and screaming and pointing at me. The security guard straight up gives her a speech about acceptance and equality, while she rants about how it's a free country and she spent so much money blah blah blah. She literally got all 3 of her tickets for free, got a free drink with her credits, and maybe spent like $7 on popcorn. She had a million coupons on her account, so maybe she didn't even buy that. Also, this is private property. My private property. And I'm publicly telling you to leave. She brings the son out, legit points at me and goes, "This is the bad man that's kicking us out," so the entire time I'm giving the husband range excess compensation. Per policy, the kid is ranting at me for being a bad person and how this isn't fair. I just thought that was funny, because, like, how could a 6-year-old even comprehend that his mom was being discriminatory based on something as trivial as a sexual preference? And was now being punished for it. Several employees and other guests had been around for the removal, so I had a bunch of people coming up to me and saying it was so amazing that I stuck up for myself. But like, was it? Is the expectation really that I'm supposed to just roll over for her? No. Get out, Lamau. And when I went to thank the security guard for his kind words, he went into a 40-minute long rant about how Kobe Bryant was assassinated by the US government. And I was off the clock. Frown.
If Terry's one thing I've learned from working here, it's that people can't read by theatersauce. Go in to clean the theater and put up a sign in front of the door saying "Cleaning in progress, please wait alone" with partition barrier as an extra hint. People still walk past the sign, move the barrier out of the way, then act surprised when I tell them they can't sit down yet and have to wait outside. Had internet issues, so our card readers were down for a whole day. Had multiple signs on front doors and even on the card readers themselves. People still pull out credit card to pay and try to stick it in the reader. Then get angry at me because they just ordered all this stuff and they don't have cash. Got reserved seating recently, but my chain is so cheap that the screens the customers pick their seats from aren't touch screens, so they have to tell us the seat numbers so we can select for them. We have signs on each screen saying "Not a touch screen" in big letters, and even tell them verbally that they have to tell us the seat numbers. They still try to poke the screen to select the seats. It doesn't work, so they poke the shit out of it even harder. One day the screen is gonna break from the number of people who practically punch it. So basically, signs don't work and people will do what they wanna do regardless, then take their anger or frustration out on me. Bro, I get paid $8.25. I don't have any say in the way we do things, I just do it.
Old people are so damn rude. By class of 2017. Assholes come in all ages, but old people might be the worst. I don't know if I've complained about this in the past and am repeating myself, but it annoys me how old people interrupt you while you're helping other customers. It's like they don't understand the concept of getting in line and waiting their turn. I wish I could say these were isolated incidents, but it happens rather frequently. At this point I've gotten kinda used to it, but today an old lady really irritated me and I just gotta let off some steam.
Your line need event. Gotta love slanderous customer reviews. By Acrobatic Opinion. Hi folks. I have worked at a theater for nearly 6 years and will be quitting at the beginning of June to move to a new city before I start grad school. This silly little situation literally has me considering quitting early because I'm just so exhausted from dealing with entitled customers. A few nights ago I was cleaning theaters when a coworker came to find me. For context, I'm an assistant manager, because a couple handed her a receipt for a concession combo that was sold in January of 2018 to 15 months ago. They told her they redeemed this through a ticket popcorn coupon deal that we haven't done in a year and a half or more. And ostensibly the manager at the time told them they could get their popcorn anytime they wanted after it was redeemed. This has never been the case, for hopefully obvious reasons. My teenage coworker explained to the couple that we could not do this as this was just a receipt showing something was purchased over a year ago, and that the tickets and popcorn had to have been redeemed simultaneously. The man freaked out on her. And to me. So I asked them what the situation was. They rehashed the same thing they told my coworker and I explained to them that I'm not sure what happened previously, but this is not and has never been a rule at our cinema. That this isn't even a coupon, it's just a receipt from over a year ago. They insisted that they were told this was acceptable by a manager and all the typical entitled customer drivel, "This is ridiculous, we're not lying," etc. So I stood there for about 10 seconds thinking, do I want to pick this fight? And B, even if I wanted to punch this in, could I in a way that doesn't mess up our cash or stock count? Finally I said to them, you know what, it's fine. I can be bothered. Punched it in as another kind of coupon and figured if it came up with the higher-ups I would explain the exception I made, given that that amount of popcorn probably costs us about 80 cents and they were not going to relent. They already had their combo in hand, so I told them they were fine, and walked away into the office. This entire interaction lasted no more than 60 seconds, and frankly was pretty unremarkable over the course of my 8-hour shift. Apparently, this was not good enough for this couple, as they proceeded to write a 7-paragraph, libelous review about how I embarrassed them for several minutes, by telling them our policy. Told them there was a change in policy. I made very clear that we never did this, and in fact if they had the coupon itself and not some receipt they probably picked up half of the ground. It says the entire value had to be redeemed at once, and said I couldn't be bothered with them before walking into the office and slamming the door. Another coworker followed me in right after to ask a question, pretty sure she can't walk through locked doors? Among other denigrating comments and dramatized aspects of this 1-minute interaction that ended with them getting what they wanted anyway. I know this shouldn't grind my gears nearly as much as it does. Things like this just makes you not want to do anything more than you have to for customers. It's like if you don't also wipe their ass for them while giving them product for free, it will never be good enough. I'm sure this is self-evident to everybody working in customer service, but my god, millennials are so not the entitled generation.
BAREBONEZ Staffing. By Throwaway 123431514. We're now operating at 1 manager, 1 team lead, and 1 floor staff every shift until this blows over. On the one hand, this sucks for everybody, but on the other hand, this is a serious epidemic. I was shocked by the fact that our Friday business was just like any other Friday, including tons of old folks. I wanted to take them aside and be like, hey, you know there's a bug going around, and if you get it, you're going to wind up in fucking intensive care, right? But yeah, totally enjoy your 2 hours sitting in a room packed with strangers as you put things into your mouth with your bare hands.
Small rant about a guest. By KaijuHunterBrax. I was working on our laser tag computer when a guest came up to pick up their ticket. I told them, hey, I'm working on this computer right now, if you need tickets, you can go up to concessions. This dude just side-eyes me and says, I have to go all the way in line to get my ticket? Yes, sir. For my movie that starts in 2 minutes? If you're just picking them up, you get them from the podium. What really irks me is 1. Why is it my fault your movie starts in 2 minutes? Manage your time better. 2. You should not be exempt from the line just for that reason alone. 3. This is me being petty, a thank you would have been nice. If I could have printed your ticket out, I would have. Otherwise, why waste your precious time if I can't? Not only that, you can easily get them from our front kiosks. Piss off.
Seems as if teenagers are getting more belligerent. By Coahuilaceratops. I work as an assistant manager at a Regal location, and absolutely hate working through the summer. Outside of the $1 Summer Movie Express events we do at 9 a.m., twice a week, we have to deal with more teens who have nothing better to do than hang out at the theater. In the past few weeks, I've kicked out and outright banned at least 2 teenage boys for being disruptive, rude to my staff, nearly damaging property, digging in the trash for large items to try and get free refills, and panhandling other customers for arcade money. I had to threaten them with calling the police because they argued me down about not wanting to leave the building. I've had to herd several groups of other teens out of rated R movies they snuck into. Does no one realize we have cameras? And dealt with their parents who were pissy about not being able to just drop their kids off for our movies, as if we're some sort of daycare. But X location lets us do it. We are not X location, and we follow policy because we get audited to hell for every little thing. I'm just doing my job. I don't remember ever having this much trouble in past years with teenagers. Their attitudes, lack of self-awareness and sense of entitlement just seems to get worse. Having to deal with it really turns typically smooth shifts into unnecessarily stressful ordeals.
Been working at AMC for just over a year now. Here's my best stories. By Pix3LW0LF. My interview was on April 1st and they put me in workforce a day later. My first few weeks were right around when Infinity War came out. Trial by fire. Best interaction was with a blonde albino-level white guy who came in right as we were closing, who was asking about Avengers. We told him he'd have to come back later, but if he wanted to stay and chat it was cool, and he just shouted in our lobby, "That movie is gonna be fucking sick. Like grandma's puking on the floor sick." My manager and I turned to each other and busted out laughing. I had one "I'd like to speak to your manager" type throw change at me. I got to see Infinity War 3 days early and people at my school actually avoided me because they thought I would spoil it. We had our kettle break with over 2,000 people in attendance for Incredibles 2. I took the brunt of the bitching from people. It broke 3 more times in the next few weeks. I had a pastor and a nun come in and talk Marvel movies with me for an hour. I sold the most premieres at my theater 3 months in a row. It was a really boring summer.
Tense Joker experience by Chemtrails702. My theater is in a casino, so we had armed security from them posted near the box office. I was working the box office today. A man came in wearing an armored vest and got questioned by security at the front, and then the dude left and returned a couple minutes later. When he bought a ticket for me, the dude seemed like he was trying to act cool when he was visibly tense and kinda shaking. After he walked away, the security asked me about what theater and seat he was in. Tons of the security came down and then police came and questioned the dude. He got escorted out by police and apparently he had a knife on him that he threw in the bushes after he left the first time. The dude ran away after being trespassed, but the police have his info, so he's gonna get caught. You guys have any crazy stories about Joker?
Sneaking in food to the next level by dopeahontas. This was in 2011. I worked as a supervisor at one of the biggest theaters in our town. 18 auditoriums, new IMAX screen, big staff, the works. This is a rule in every theater, I'd imagine, but no outside food or drinks are allowed, ever. We have a podium person that tiers tickets and is responsible for having customers toss their food or drink before going past the podium person. If, for some reason, they refuse and keep walking, we're to radio a manager with a description of the customer and where they're headed. We're serious about this food/drink thing since it hinders our own food/drink sales. Anyways, this one particular instance, I was stuck on podium to give another employee a 30-minute break. About 15 minutes in, my manager radios me and asks if I've been letting people in with food. At this point I'd been a supervisor for 6+ months and I'm not a moron, so no, of course not. He doesn't believe me and asks me to go check an auditorium for outside food after my employee gets back to podium. I'm annoyed and head that way when podium is taken over again. He describes this lady's outfit to me and I remember her and she had a decent-sized purse, so I figured she brought in her own candy. I'm surprised they're making a big deal out of it because we don't check bags, and if you make it to the auditorium with your food, you're good to go. Just don't let us see it at the door or the hallways. I get in there and spot the lady. She has a full-size pizza from Domino's in her lap and 2 ice cream cones. I radio my manager back and swear she had to have hid these coming in, but I had absolutely no idea where the hell she kept a pizza box and 2 ice cream cones. Her purse definitely would not have fit a pizza box. And as for the ice cream cones, no clue. She is visibly shocked when I approach her and tell her she has to toss it all. And probably pissed she wasted all that food, but that went off without a hitch. Most people are too embarrassed to cause a scene. I still wish I knew how the hell she snuck it in.
Customers tried to have sex in the bathroom by GhostHoarder. I posted this on r/Tales from Retail, but I think it would be appreciated here too. This is only half my story, as I came into work for the aftermath, but still a pretty memorable incident. I work at a little locally owned mom and pop movie theater. We have about 6 auditoriums, no assigned seating, and none of the fancy frills of the big chain theaters, but we keep everything clean and comfortable, and well stocked. I work with a pretty colorful cast of people, but that's a few tales for a later day. So on this day, I come into work for the afternoon shift, and I see a police car outside our building talking to what I saw as an older man in his mid-50s. It's unusual, but I figured maybe someone broke into his car or we had someone be a bit disorderly, so I mind my business, go in and put on my uniform. At the counter, all of my co-workers are laughing and ribbing as they usually do, but they're more than eager to rush over to me and inform me about all the juicy details. They had noticed a woman go into the men's restroom. Not a big deal, she might have not realized she went into the wrong restroom, it happens. Then the man comes, opens the women's restroom door, peeks inside, and then hustles into the men's room. Odd behavior. Not exactly very discreet. Something's up. So they sent someone in to check. Lo and behold, they're both in the handicapped stall with their pants on their ankles in the middle of it. So they're told that this is a family establishment, please zip up and come out here. They hustle out, and it's not a couple of teenagers as you'd expect, this is an older couple in their 50s. You know, people who should know better. The woman has back towards the auditorium, but our manager stops her and says you're going to have to wait here until the police come. And that's about when I got there. Apparently when the officer arrived and saw that it was a couple of old people, she was completely baffled and then laughed really hard before talking to them. So, to make matters much worse, this couple turned out to be divorced, and had taken their children to go see the Meg. So yeah, there were two young kids in the theater while this was happening. They had to have their grandma come pick them up, and both the man and the woman were banned permanently from the premises. Also, we later discovered the lady had left her panties in the movie along with a towel before she'd scurried off for her rendezvous with her ex-partner. Yeah, so, please don't have sex in the movie theater bathroom, or the movie theater. It's really gross for everyone involved.
Can you bring snacks into your theater? By deleted. A couple months ago, I was working in the Barks office, when a customer walked up to me. He looked to be in his late teens or early 20s, had purple hair, joggers with rainbow-colored cat faces printed on them, and a rainbow baseball cap. Let's call him Q. Me: hi, how can I help you? Q: hey, so back in Minnesota there was this theater and they let you bring in snacks from outside into the theater, and I was just wondering if you guys let people bring snacks into your theater here at this theater. He talked really nervously in a big run-on sentence, and he kept fidgeting with the drawstrings on his pants as he spoke. Me: oh, no sorry. We don't allow any outside food or drink inside of our theaters. Q blurts out very quickly, well that's a shame because I wanted to bring you. Me: oh, sorry. Q: okay, thank you. Then he left. I could tell he was flirting with me, but I was so confused I didn't get the punchline. It wasn't until 5 minutes later that I realized, oh wait, I am the snack. I then felt really bad about how invalidating my response was, as this was pretty bold given that I am a straight 19-year-old male in a very conservative state. I also felt very flattered to learn that I am a snack.
To those going to see The Fault in Our Stars by CovertCoding. Allow me to start off by saying the theater I work at is small, thus we only get around 30 to 40 people a day and maybe 100 if we're lucky on the weekends. With the release of The Fault in Our Stars we've been hitting upwards from 200 to 400 people daily. With all the extra people, as you could expect, there is more of a mess to clean up. Let me make this clear, I'm not here to rant about lazy people leaving popcorn bags on the floor. I don't mind cleaning up the mess, really I don't. In fact, sometimes I may even find some dropped cash, which is always a plus. Now, that being said, the movie mentioned earlier is considered a sad movie. Whenever I do checks, all you can hear is weeping and sniffling among the audience. If you are going to see this movie and you happen to cry and such, please do me and my co-workers the favor and throw your tissues on the floor. Yes, that's right, I told you to make a mess. Let me explain. I understand that people don't tend to throw away their trash. Hell, I understand it is my job to clean it up. Sweeping is easy, If you throw your tissues on the floor, then I can sweep them up in less than a second and move on. I know it's convenient, but please don't stuff your snot-filled tissues in the cup holders, please. If you throw it on the floor, then I can sweep it up, but when you lay a snotty tissue foundation in my cup holders, then I have to reach in and pick them up with my hands. If you want to be a true hero, simply throw them away. You don't understand how happy it makes us inside when we see you throwing away your garbage. It is like Christmas morning every time.
Rude AF Customer. By Cheese96. I'd quite customers have to be over dramatic and rude as f. I just started my shift as ushering/cleaning, on way to my second theater to clean when a customer comes out of a theater. Him, are you the one who cleans the theater? Me, yeah, but I just started my shift. Him, I'm sitting in the back row and this theater is completely trashed. The cleanliness is abysmal. It doesn't look like you cleaned. This continued for a minute straight. Me, I'm so sorry sir, I can come in and clean it now. Him, no. Forget it. I'm going to your manager right now. After a while my manager sees me and tells me she knows it wasn't my fault, but to make sure I clean it after the movie. I'm standing outside with a second usher after filling her in, telling her I'd need help because it wasn't cleaned by the person before me. We go in and I go immediately to the back row to clean the mess, and it's a large cup and 2 empty boxes of food. This man yelled at me for a minute straight and tried to report me to my manager for a cup and 2 boxes. I understand we're supposed to clean between theaters, but the man totally overreacted.
So, we hired a Kevin by GhostHoarder. So, we hired a Kevin and he lives up to his name. I try not to be too hard on him because I think he's on the spectrum, but you know, it's hard to feel sorry for him when he claimed to hate Queen because they're an average band. Kevin only likes country music, by the way, and hates rock and roll of all kinds, so you know he has to go. Here is a list of Kevin moments we've had, and that's only been on one shift. 1. Kevin blew his nose in front of a customer and proceeded to serve them without applying the hand sanitizer we have conveniently located under the register for such reasons. 2. Kevin has also prepared a salted pretzel with his bare hands. No gloves. He just rubbed the salt on with his fingers. Thanks, Kevin. 3. Kevin brushed popcorn stuck in the kettle lid once again, with his bare hands. 4. While helping to sweep up the auditorium, Kevin hacked up a nice big loogie into the trash can, you guessed it, right in front of a customer. 5. A customer had her hands too full to carry all of her things. So what does Kevin do? He tries to shove a kid's tray inside of a brown carrying tray the exact same size as a kid's tray. Because somehow that will magically make it easier for her to carry without hands. 6. Kevin made a mistake on a slushie. When this happens, we can just pour the slushie back into the mixer unless it's a mixed flavor, of course. Kevin, however, pours his mistake into the trash. 7. If icy lints fall onto the floor, we pick them up and wash them, and return them to their rightful place. Yeah, I know, but our boss is a cheapskate and a baby boomer. What can you do? Kevin simply picked up the fallen lids, crushed them into a ball, and threw them away. 8. If he starts talking to you, he won't stop, and he gets right into your personal bubble, and follows you around as you walk around, at your hip like a dog on a leash. He did this to my coworker, and even followed him into the bathroom to continue the conversation when it was obvious that the kid was trying to get a breather. My coworker claims he didn't even realize Kevin was in there with him until he suddenly restarted the conversation in the toilet next to him. 9. Kevin gets into these conversations, he completely forgets that he is in fact at work, and should pick up a broom or something and help out. He doesn't even work and talk at the same time, he just talks while we all work. The moment I wanted to strangle him was when I had a customer, and he completely ignored me and didn't offer to go make any of the food for me, but when he had a customer, he turned to me and said, "I have a customer right here, so you should be ready to go get me something if I need it." They hadn't even ordered yet. 10. Every time Kevin uses the restroom, he is out of commission for 20 minutes approximately. Every time. I'm sure there's a ritual he has to fulfill, but seriously I wouldn't put it past him to be trying to figure out how the sink works, because washing his hands doesn't seem to be a thing he understands. So yeah, he got sent home an hour earlier because all of us were about ready to pull out Julius Caesar on this kid. I feel bad for him because he lacks social skills and everyone is fed up with him and doesn't want to be around him. I personally wouldn't mind him if he actually did his job. Which he doesn't.
10 Things I Hate Cleaning Up by Dido 1. In no particular order. 1. Melted ice cream. Ice cream has a decent amount of fat in it, so it smears and sticks quite a bit. People on eaten ice cream in the cup holders quite a bit. 2. Nacho cheese. This never wipes off easily. It smears more than any other edible item and it just seems to get everywhere. 3. Chewing tobacco. Sure, people often have the courtesy to use a plastic bottle, but having to pick up and throw out a bottle of that stuff makes me queasy every time. 4. Outside food. There's more than one reason why it's not allowed. Oftentimes people will bring in fast food and various crumbs and stale odors will again make me queasy. 5. Gum. How someone can be so lazy and gross as to stick their chewed gum wherever they want dumbfounds me. And if it stays there too long, it can be a real hassle to remove. 6. Bodily fluids. Enough said. 7. Large boxes. Chain number 3 has a deal with Pizza Hut. The pizza is served in large cardboard boxes that people leave behind, often in groups. This also applies to the large serving boxes for nachos and fries. 8. Melted chocolate. Some people have a bad habit of sitting in chocolate. It will melt and then harden immediately after the guest leaves. It is pretty tough to scrub off if it isn't completely dry, and if you're using a rag, you'll definitely have to get a new one. 9. Sunflower seeds. Seriously, whoever brings in sunflower seeds and leaves them sitting in a cup is an automatic slob. Even more so when they spit the seeds out on the floor. The theater isn't your backyard or a ball game. If you want to eat like a pig, do it outside. 10. Tissues. For sad movies like 5 Feet Apart, people seem to have no problem with leaving their snot and tears in the cup holder. I cringe whenever I come across this. Geez, writing this post made me a lot more appreciative of popcorn spills.
Corporate understands literally nothing about manual labor. By why? YouTube. Why? Whenever our district manager would come to check our theater, he'd have the most unreasonable expectations of people who are working part-time, who are in college, high school, stoners, etc. Our DM was criticizing how much dust was everywhere, as if that's our #1 priority now, getting mad at the floor staff when they didn't know who he was when he didn't even wear his name tag, not having the courtesy to introduce himself to anyone, just flat out ordered you to do something even if you were busy, and didn't help us while cleaning. It basically amounted to "I'm too good to help you." I was talking with my GM about it later on in the day after he left, and he was very upset with the DM and told me he was such an asshole to work for. That's when I realized that every one of us is working for an asshole who doesn't understand the job below them and think that since it's below them that it must be the easiest job on planet Earth. I can at least have some respect for GMs if they worked their way up from floor staff, but that wasn't that common at my old location.